No. Jocelyn? Caleb Nolan's there. Rebecca Peterson? Caleb Runyon? David Sanchez? Jonathan Sanchez? You there, Jonathan? Sean? Hannah Toombs? All right. Seems like we're only missing one person then. Brendan. Oh, okay. It's good to see everybody today. I have a hurricane heading my way. We're getting outer bands of it now. We've had some rain and some wind. We got some wind right now. And it's supposed to make landfall tonight, or I mean actually technically after midnight sometime, so I guess Thursday, early morning Thursday, however you want to look at it. And so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but my guess is we'll just get several inches of rain, but not as much as last time. Last time we got about a foot. I think this time we're going to get about 4 or 5 inches. We'll have rain. Do what? No, I do not drown dogs, if that's what I heard you say.
I know it wasn't you, it was a hurricane. But I was just kidding.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Like the issue with your septic tank that time?
Oh yeah, my septic tank. I don't think it'll be a problem. I mean, it's only happened once, and I've been here for 6.5 years, so I've been through several hurricanes. That was the only time that ever happened. It could happen again, but I don't think it'll be this time. But anyway, I hope not. They have canceled a public school tomorrow in my county. My county is in the hurricane, whatever they call it. The governor has issued 34 counties under hurricane advisory or whatever they're calling it. And so public schools are canceled in this county in Florida tomorrow. I know that. But I think I'll be okay. I hope so. It's just that a lot of people haven't fully recovered from the last hurricane, and a lot of the water has not completely receded in some areas. In my neighborhood, I think we'll be okay. So we'll just leave it at that. And of course, next week I am at a conference, and so I'm trying to work out if I can do this live because I'll be in Colorado, and I got to try to figure out. So what I will do, if I'm not live, what I'll do is I'll record it and post it like I did when I had a hurricane. But that might be what I have to do. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll send you all an email and let you know because I'm having trouble figuring out. I don't know what the situation is like at the conference, and it's on Mountain Time and you're on Central Time, and here I'm on Eastern Time. So figuring that out, and if I'd have a quiet place that I could do it. So what I might do is record it as a YouTube-like thing, you know, a video, and then I would just post it up. We'll have all the assignments on there like usual. Okay? And then the next week after that is, if I'm not mistaken, you get the whole week off for Thanksgiving, right? So next week I'm at the conference. Then there's Thanksgiving. Then we come back and there's another week that'll take us into December. So in other words, what I'm saying is this class is almost finished. We're getting to the end. Okay, so hang in there. A few of you are a little behind. Most of you are not. But try to catch up, get ahead. In fact, this class will be somewhat easier the last week than it has been the other weeks. And I gave you your big assignment, declaration and address, early in the semester, so you don't have to do it at the end. That's part of the reason why I did it, because we talk about it a lot. And if I waited to the end, then you'd have that paper along with several other papers. So hopefully that'll help you with your scheduling. All right, so that's just kind of what it is. Look probably for videos that'll be uploaded, but I will send everybody an email and I'll post an announcement because, you know, we won't meet again this week. And then next week, I'm flying. I'll just give you my schedule. I'm flying to Denver Monday, I don't know, about noon. And I fly back on Friday. I don't know when I get home, you know, early evening. Friday night I get home. So I will actually be in Denver next week. It's the Evangelical Theological Society annual meeting. And it has these evangelical scholars from all over the country, all over the world, I guess. Be a lot of papers, and I'm in particularly a member of one part of that, which is the Near Eastern Archaeological Society, NEAS, and I'm delivering a paper about an early archaeologist explorer who excavated in Jordan and Israel. I do know that Professor Harper will be there, so I'll see him there. I imagine we'll cross paths because I'm going to try. Yeah, I'm going to try to go to his paper. I don't know if he'll come to my paper. Probably not. He'll probably have other things to do more important. But anyway, I'll try to make his paper.
List of people that are speaking and stuff, and like all the workshops, and like you guys have like a book, don't you? Like huge book to select from.
Yes, here it is. I don't know if you can see it because I'm small, but this is the book. Yeah, in the back it has everybody listed. There's a whole bunch of people. There's like 3 pages, 4 pages, I don't know, 6 pages of people speaking, and the thing is about over 100 pages long, 110 pages of stuff. So it's got, you know, it's got New Testament, Old Testament. It's got some stuff on theology, church history, archaeology, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So it's in downtown Denver. So that's where I'll be. And you can still contact me same way through, you know, email or whatever. But I will, let's just say, I think just to make it simpler for everybody, since I have everybody here pretty much, I will just record the videos for next week. That's what I'll do. I'll just record these lectures for next week. That way you don't have to worry about it. And then you can just watch them. Okay, I'll just put them up there right in the list, and it'll just say whatever the title is. You click on it, you watch it. You can take your notes, and then just do your assignments, okay? And, of course, if you have any questions, let me know. And then over Thanksgiving, if you haven't caught up on everything, please do. Have some good food, and then we'll meet again the week after Thanksgiving. Okay, does that make sense?
What's your favorite Thanksgiving food? Like, is there one or a couple dishes that you like?
See, now, is this like a stall thing, or is this pure curiosity?
No, I'm genuinely curious, because, I do want to know. I'm not trying to stall.
You're not trying to stall, but you are stalling. Okay, even though you're not trying to stall, I don't know. I like Thanksgiving stuff. I like turkey. I like the turkey. You know, it's pretty simple, mashed potatoes. But I do like some of the casseroles. Yeah, I haven't had them in a while, but, you know, like there's a green bean casserole, pretty good. A broccoli and cheese casserole, that's pretty good, with rice in it. I don't know. You know, one time, I'll give you a brief Thanksgiving dinner story, since you're not wanting to stall. When I was teaching in North Carolina, This is several years ago. I would say, you know, I won't say how many, but I don't even know. But it was a long time ago. We had a student at the college there. This is Roanoke Bible College, now Mid-Atlantic Christian University. MACU, they call themselves now. He was from Florida. He's from down here in Florida near Lake Okeechobee. And I found out that he was not going to be able to go home for Thanksgiving. I don't know how I found that out. I heard him talking or something, and his name was Nathan. I said, Nathan, you're not going home for Thanksgiving? He goes, no. I said, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you come to my house for Thanksgiving dinner, since you won't get to have Thanksgiving dinner? Oh, he was very excited, very happy, thanked me. And then on Thanksgiving Day, he shows up at my house. And, you know, we got the table there. We got the turkey and the casseroles and the mashed potatoes and all that rolls and all kinds of carrots, all kinds of stuff. And he sits down and he looks at everything. And this is what he said. He goes, "Where's the gator tail?" I said, "What?" He goes, "Where's the gator tail?" He goes, "It's Thanksgiving. You got to have gator tail." I said, "Well, Nathan, I am sorry. I don't have access to any gator tail. And I'm not quite sure how I should cook it if I had it." But no, he seriously thought I was going to have gator tail because he lived near Lake Okeechobee. And they had like a big farm. And every year they had gator, like I guess roasted, I don't know, baked gator tail for Thanksgiving dinner, and I didn't have it. I mean, he still was happy, but he was a little disappointed. So I'm not having any gator tail this year either, just to let you know. All right, we better get going. So maybe you could have gator tail.
Yes.
I saw on the news, and I wonder if this was any of you guys, any of you students there. I heard on the news that there were a couple of people that were in Columbia, Missouri, and they were trying to rob a place, and they were going through like a drive-through or something. I don't know. I'll have to look up the story. And I thought, oh no, I hope none of our CCCB people.
How was the heist going down?
What?
I don't know if they got it right. How was the heist going down?
I'm going to have to look it up. We got to get going. We've already, I won't say we've wasted time, but we will. I will look it up and I will post a link in our school, in what you call the canvas. Okay, here we go. Let's get started today. All right, we're taking a look now at organizational development. This is one of the things about the Restoration Movement. We've been talking about it, that it is congregational, right? It's congregational. Each congregation decides things for themselves. So you'll have elders, okay? A plurality of elders. They're supposed to be your decision makers. You got deacons. These are the kind of church officers that I don't know if you're accustomed to them, but that's, in the churches where I've attended, we've had elders and deacons. Maybe we've had, I don't know, like you've got maybe a few other kind of offices of some kind. I was at one church where they said they had to have trustees, and the trustees were over the property. That's the only one I've ever had like that. But at any rate, the elders would make the decisions. Now, here's the dealio. If we get this, then how do we decide to do things? Let's take, for example, something big. Let's take something like a college education. Let's say something like a college called CCCB. Okay, CCCB it exists to provide education to people, right? Ideally, hopefully, that will then use their education to help the church, serve the church, help people in various ways. Okay, so I think most people agree that's a noble cause, that's a good thing. But which congregation could do that? Could your home church start a college and run it? I don't know. Maybe maybe some of these mega churches or something, but they don't do it. But they could, I suppose. But most congregations could not do something like that. So what happens then is we get what are called parachurch organizations. They have been called in the past. They are parachurch. They're alongside of the church, and they organize themselves as a kind of non-profit organization that's going to do things. Now, it could be a college. It could be a Christian camp, like a camp where young people go in the summer and they have retreats and they have week-long camps. You know what I'm talking about. Or maybe an orphanage. How about an orphanage? There's a need for an orphanage. Maybe some kind of a homeless shelter or some kind of food bank. Okay, so I'm just thinking of some things that it might be difficult for a single congregation to do. Okay? Then the question comes, how do we organize that? If it's one congregation and they're doing it, to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're doing it, this is how we're going to fund it, this is how it's going to work. But if you start needing more help with that, more funds and so forth, how's that going to work? So we usually have now parachurch organizations or nonprofit organizations that will run a lot of those kind of things that I think most people would say, yeah, that's a good thing. We need some kind of camp, for kids to go, say in the summer when they're not in school, or maybe weekend retreats or whatever. That's a great thing. But to do that, we need property. We need a place to do it. We need staff. We need maybe buildings, right? A cafeteria, cabins, or some place for people to spend the night. So all that takes organization. Now, when we talk about organizational development and the way it started, of course, we're starting pretty small. You see this picture that's on the screen. Does anyone remember what that's a picture of? Does that look familiar? It is a church. Which church? Brush Run. Who said that? Nobody said it? Oh, you said it in the back. Okay. Okay. Get yourself an imaginary gold star and put it in your imaginary crown. A crown, yeah. Well, this is what used to happen to me. Yeah, I'll give you a typical thing that happened to me. People would see me, and then people would come up to me and say, hey, we have to move everything out of our house into another house. Can you come and help us? And I'd say, well, okay. And then I would get there, let's say on Saturday, and they would say, we've got a piano on the second floor. We need to bring the piano and take it outside and put it on the truck. And then we need to take it across wherever to another place and carry it up to another floor. And can you help us do that? And I say, well, okay. And one time a guy had me move washing machines, dryers, pianos, all kinds of stuff. Okay? And then, sometimes I'd say, well, I'm kind of busy. I don't know. They say, well, this will be a star in your crown. Anybody ever say that to you? It'll be a star in your crown. That's what they used to say to me a lot. I should have a lot of stars in my crown. I don't know if I got a crown, but they told me I get stars in it for basically doing a lot of free work for them. So that's what I'm telling you here. You just got yourself an imaginary star and an imaginary crown. So the Brush Run Church, remember, was all by itself. But remember, they're trying to follow the ideas of the Bible. And so this is local autonomy. Local autonomy. And remember, they had come out of denominations. And I don't know how many of you are a part of a denomination or have been a part of a denomination, or how much experience you have dealing with sort of the politics of a denomination. But denominations usually have quite a bit of control. They want to control property. They want to control money. I was just reading an article that the Methodist Church, the United Methodist Church, is going through a kind of fragmentation. And some of the churches have left the United Methodist Church, and they're forming something. I think they're calling it the Global Methodist Church or something like that. And anyway, remember, those United Methodist churches all meet in a building, and they have, pews and instruments and chairs and maybe vehicles and office equipment. They have a lot of property to run that church congregation. And once they are leaving, they say they're leaving, then the United Methodist denomination says, well, you know what? You can't just leave. That's not your building. That's not your equipment. That's not your church van. That belongs to the United Methodist denomination. And they also said that what these people would have to do is they'd have to go through this long process to try to get some of that property from the United Methodist, and they wanted them to pay like whatever they would normally pay for 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and they had to pay it all in cash and so on. So it's, these turn into court battles. This kind of thing happened, by the way, with the Christian churches. Christian churches, churches of Christ. Eventually what will form is a denomination that perhaps you've heard of. The Disciples of Christ have a denominational headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana. And when some churches said, hey, we don't want to be a part of that denomination, we want to be independent, there was a big court case about it. In fact, it went to the Supreme Court of Indiana, the Indiana Supreme Court, because a lot of it was stationed there. And they basically found in favor of the independent churches, but here's the only reason why. Because there had never been a denomination, and now they were making a denomination. And so they said, well, you can't just create a denomination and then say all these congregations, you own all their property. So they basically then allowed each congregation to decide if they wanted to join that denomination. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But it turned into some heated court battles in the 20th century. Mid-20th century is when a lot of this was happening. Well, anyway, this is part of the fear people have about organization, is that somebody's going to take it over. Someone's going to force you to do something. Someone's going to take away the property or the church building or whatever. And so there had been this, and there has been this long-standing maybe fear or animosity against hierarchy. And those have different names, like synod, assemblies, sessions, presbyteries, and so on. Now, the Brush Run Church, as you know, was, in the Campbell's point of view, was this, an independent church. And they got together and they built the building and they had the land. The land was donated. And that was, just a little independent church. It's not a big church, as you can see. But they were not a member of anything else. And as you know, then, they kind of joined in with the Baptists. The Baptists thought they were becoming Baptists. They said, we're not Baptist, but we'll join in. And guess what? They did join in, but eventually they leave. And you remember our buddy Walter Scott becomes an evangelist, Mahoning Association of the Baptists, and it basically dissolved, and all those congregations became independent. So now, let's say we find ourselves in that situation, and at first everybody's just trying to get everything organized. They're trying to survive, I guess you might say. The leaders are too busy sort of defending themselves from critics to really think about any kind of organization. And here you see one of the covers, a cover of the Millennial Harbinger, okay, devoted to primitive Christianity. Can you see that? might be pretty small for you to see. The Millennial Harbinger devoted to primitive Christianity, conducted by Alexander Campbell. Okay, so that's July 1857. Okay, published at Bethany, Virginia. Well, as the movement grew, that is, as they got more churches, first it was just Brush Run. Then pretty soon, they've got scores of churches, then hundreds of churches, and then they merge with the churches in Kentucky, and they have churches in Indiana, and they have churches in Ohio, and so on and so on. So now we've got hundreds, let's say, of congregations that are really each one independent. So how are we going to do things together? Well, what kind of things would we want to do together? Well, have fellowship, have meetings, have training, have my favorite things, potluck dinners. Oh, well, you don't need a thing. You know what I found is a lot of churches don't do the old potluck dinners anymore. Do your churches do the potluck dinners? All right. That's my favorite thing. I used to love to go when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I went to church by myself. Can you believe that? I went to church by myself starting at about the age of, I don't know, like 6, 7. And I would go. I would walk down the road and I would go to the church. I'd go to Sunday school and I'd go to church. But my favorite thing is when they said I'd walk into the church and I would smell all that food. And then somebody would say, "Oh, you've got to stay for the potluck dinner." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And there was a lady there that made homemade pies. Her name was Ruby. And Ruby would find me and Ruby would say, because there would be a lot of pies there, and Ruby would tell me which one she had made. Because everybody always wanted to know, and Ruby's pies were gone. Because they were really, really good. She actually baked them she would sell them to the local restaurant. And so I would always get a good pie. She knew I liked blueberry pie. Sometimes she'd make it, "It's blueberry," and I would go get some. Okay? So I love those potluck dinners. That is a cooperative thing. Everybody brings their food and do it, but you can do that congregation by congregation. But let's say you wanted to have some kind of way of spreading the gospel. Several of you went to the ICOM meeting, right? Some of you went. And here is a meeting of people that are meeting about missions, right? All kinds of missionaries and people from different parts of the world and people having different organizations to do that. And so look at that. Look at the level of organization and the level of different things that are there. You've got this mission to India, this mission to Africa, this mission somewhere else. And then you've got an organization that invites them all. They all come and display their stuff, and then they have speakers and they have training. And then, college students go and different people go, missionaries go. And it's a huge, huge undertaking. That takes a lot of organization. That takes a lot of cooperation. And let's say you wanted to be a missionary. Let's just say that you've decided you want to be a missionary to, I don't know, Botswana. Someplace like that. Botswana. That's in Africa. It's in South Africa. Botswana. I would suggest if you decide you're going to be a missionary to Botswana, you would first figure out where Botswana is. And then, what kind of language do they have there? What sort of people are there? What are their needs? Anyway, but let's get past that. You've decided where you want to go. And you know about it, and you've been studying it or whatever, and you're ready to go. But now, somehow, you got to pay the bills while you're in Botswana, right? And how are you going to let people know you're going? How are you going to raise funds? How are you going to handle all of that? That's a lot of work. Most churches, if you're going to go to them and say, "Will you support me as a missionary to Botswana," or someplace like that, they would want you to come to their church and tell them about it. Maybe speak to their missions committee. Maybe make a presentation at the church. Well, that's okay. But let's say you've got 50 churches that are going to support you. How are you going to go and report to all 50 of these churches? And let's say, how are you going to organize all this? This takes a lot of organization. And that's just for one mission to one place with, say, one person or a handful of people. Well, in 1842, AC, you know who that is, Alexander Campbell, he calls up for organization in the Millennial Harbinger. He says, you know, if we're ever going to be really effective in reaching the world for missions and reaching people for Christ, we need to get organized. Because think about it, you can duplicate a lot of effort that really you wouldn't need to duplicate, right? Well, just think about it. Even with colleges, let's take a look at colleges because that's where you're at. You're at a college, and it's in Moberly, right? But guess what? There are other colleges around that are even of the same kind. I don't like to mention any of them because, you know, I don't want to get in trouble, but I think there's one in a town called Joplin. I think there's one in a town called Lincoln. I think there's one in a town called Grayson, Kentucky. I think there's a couple down in Tennessee. I think there's some out in California. And so, think about, I don't know how many we have anymore. You know, we used to have like 37 colleges. We don't have 37 anymore. But if you think about it, let's say we got 15. I don't know. Let's say we got 15. If you have 15 colleges, what does that mean? You need 15 campuses. You need 15 libraries. You need 15 gyms. You need 15 presidents. You need 15 sets of faculty. And on and on and on. You see what I'm talking about? So there could be duplication of effort and expense that somebody might say, well, instead of having 15 colleges, maybe we should only have 5. And all these other ones just merge together and we just form like 4 or 5. Now, that's typically does not happen. It doesn't happen very often. And nobody could force that to happen because we don't have any organization like that to do it. But what I'm saying is the same kind of thing could be said about a mission. Let's say you want to be a missionary to Botswana, and there's 3 or 4 other people to say they want to be a missionary to Botswana, and each one of you goes around doing your own thing, and you show up in Botswana, and you're in different parts of the Botswana, and are you going to work together? Are you going to collect money together? Are you going to report to churches together? But all of that then comes for a kind of level of organization. And this will lead to controversy. This is what I'm leading to here. We'll start with missions, but I think we could call it organizational controversy because the churches are so independent that they do not want to, they do not like to be told what to do or what they can't do. Does that make sense? If you went to some congregation, I don't know where, let's say somewhere there, let's say Mexico, Missouri, and you guys don't seem to like the town of Mexico, Missouri, but let's say you went there and there was a church there. I'm sure there must be at least one kind of Christian church thing there. Let's say you go into that Christian church, it's an independent church, and you tell them, look, these are you should support these missions and not these missions, and you should do this way and this that way. And what are those people going to say? They say, what are you talking about? We're the elders of the Mexico Christian Church or whatever it's called. And, we've made these decisions. And, who are you to tell us not to do these things? You see. Well, that's part of it. So, the cooperation meeting, remember, in the Millennial Harbinger, Alexander Campbell wrote a series of 7 articles encouraging people to cooperate. He's all for independent churches, but he's saying we ought to cooperate. And here are just some of the reasons why. He believed And he's really focusing at first on missions here, right? That's what we're looking at. That the world would never be evangelized unless churches cooperated in some way. To get enough money to send somebody, to find the people to send, to have the resources to do all of this. The 7 articles then were a plea for cooperation. But as some would say, not organization. Believing churches could work together without some overarching society. Now, some people disagreed with any kind of cooperation because cooperation would lead to some kind of an organization with a president, a treasurer, a secretary, a board of directors, so on and so on. And that has been a source of controversy starting in the mid-19th century and continuing forward into the 20th century, and I suppose even today. So, that's part of the controversy. Let's see if we can move on here. So, what were some of the arguments for church organization? Okay, and perhaps we might call it cooperation. How about this? A need for Bibles. You know, today you can get the Bible is the one of the most, it's the most printed book in the world. And you can buy Bibles. You can buy a Bible online. I mean, you can buy one from Amazon or somebody like that. You can get them now digitally on your phone. I notice when I go to church now, most people do not carry a Bible. I don't know if they own a Bible. But sometimes they'll say, well, look up this passage. And I see people picking up their phone. Now, what I figure they're really doing is doing the tickety-tock and the Twittery Twitter and the Facety Facebook and the Instagram. While they're sitting there in church, they're, oh, yeah, I'm looking up John 3:16, but I'm really looking up this other stuff. Well, I don't know. I'm not there to judge them. But I'm just saying there are apps on your phone. I have one on my phone. And I can look up any passage pretty quickly. Once you learn how to use the apps, pretty quick, pretty handy. You get it all kinds of translations, NIV, NASB, KJV. The list goes on and on. So today, distribution of Bibles, not as, I suppose maybe not as difficult as it was in those days. But let's say you needed a Bible in the language of the Botswanians. Okay? Or in some other language, perhaps, that's not even been written down. And you not only need to translate it, but now you need to print it. If I'm going to print, if I was a single congregation, I said, well, I think our congregation should go door to door and just hand out Bibles to people. We'll go up there and say, hello, we're from the ABC Christian Church, and we would just like to give you this gift of a Bible. And then inside we just have the name of the church and the address. We'd like to invite you to our services, and here's a Bible. And, want to let you know we care and we're here if you need us. Whatever. And we decided to do that. And so then we wanted to get 1,000 Bibles to hand out. Well, back in 1850, you can't just go on Amazon and order 1,000 Bibles. You're going to have to get them printed. And you're going to have to find a printer that could do that. And that's going to be very expensive. And so you're probably going to say, well, let's not do 1,000. How about 100? But once you set up, in the old days when they had the printing press, like I showed you that Barton W. Stone was doing, once you get the printing press set up, it's really a lot cheaper to do a bunch of them as it is to do, if you just set it all up to type and just make one Bible, that's going to be extremely expensive because it takes a lot of work to set all that type and get it printed. But if you said, well, once you get it printed, we want you to print 100 of them or 1,000 of them, the price goes down the more you get. So doesn't it make sense if we have, let's say, 300 churches and each one of them wants to distribute 500 Bibles each, that we go together and we print up all those Bibles at once? And we're going to get it at a lot cheaper price, and we'll be able to hand out more of them. Now, here's the problem. Sometimes people who print up Bibles like to put other stuff in there besides the Bible. They like to put a page in here of the plan of salvation, or they like to put another thing in here, maybe put the Nicene Creed or some sort. They might have other kind of information in there that they have at the beginning or the end of the Bible, and you might say, well, we don't want to hand that stuff out. We just want to hand out the Bible. So decisions have to be made. But this is one of the things that Alexander Campbell and others were calling for. We need to get the Bibles out there to people so they can read it. And we've already mentioned missions. Missions. So we need to do missions together. That'd be a lot better to do that together. And that's another thing we could do. How about improving the ministry? Let's say we're going to work together to, I don't know, let's say do training. We're going to train all those crazy youth ministers to actually, do something productive instead of duct taping everyone to the wall for an activity. Maybe we should suggest that the activity have some sort of biblical application, like, be sure you don't get duct taped to the wall, kid. Okay, that's in 3 Opinions 9:3. And so, that kind of thing. There could be some training. There could be some instruction to improve the ministry. It also could be a way to protect the congregations from irresponsible preachers. Have you ever thought about that? I remember when I was a kid, we were going to try to get a new minister. A minister moved on. He went to another church, and they said, okay, we're going to get somebody. And I can remember being a kid and hearing them talk about, we're going to have to do all these interviews. We're going to have to look at these people. We're going to have to do all this. And I thought, since I was a kid, well, if somebody wants to be a minister, well, they're a good person. They'll be effective. We don't have to worry. Why? Because they're a minister. See, I thought ministers were all good guys. Now, unfortunately, I've learned that's sometimes not the case. But let's say somebody is a bad minister in Moberly, Missouri, and they leave Moberly, and they get in their car and they drive to Nashville, Tennessee. How is the church in Nashville, Tennessee going to know that that guy was a bad guy back in Missouri? Well, pretty much you can still kind of get away with that. It gets a little bit harder now with all the media, social media stuff, but still, there's a lot of this where a guy, maybe gets fired from one place, he'll go to another place, and then another place. And so if we had some kind of organization where we could sort of look over the people that are being ministers or keep track of them somehow, where a church who's looking for a minister could say, hey, this guy wants to be our minister. Is he a good guy? Okay. That could protect churches. It would be the best use of total church resources. And we had some, and we do have some New Testament examples. Let me go back. New Testament examples of people congregation organized. Do you remember when Paul took up a collection? Paul took up a collection for the church in Jerusalem. This is in the book of Acts. That's in the Bible, by the way, the New Testament. Take a look at it. And Paul told the churches up in Macedonia, get together, raise this money. When I come there, I'm going to take these collections and I'm going to deliver them down to Jerusalem to help out your Christian brothers in Jerusalem who've had a hard time. And so here we see Paul calling upon congregations to cooperate with one another, to raise money to help for other Christians who were in need and who had troubles. Okay? So they could work together to raise funds. So we do have some if we don't have a verse that says, thou shalt organize and raise money, but we do have examples. There are examples in the New Testament of churches cooperating with one another. You can take a look at some of the epistles of Paul, that he told them to circulate this to other congregations so they could read it, like the book of Ephesians, that sort of thing. Okay, so there are some reasons for this that are given. So let me remind you now that next week I will post your lectures on there, just so there's no confusion. I'll post them on there. You'll have your assignments, and just work through it that way. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Send me an email, and we'll try to work it out. Okay? So, all right. Have a good day, and we'll see you later now. Bye-bye.